My name is Noelle Doyle. I am 28 years old, and 5 years ago, while I was recovering from emergency surgery in an ICU bed, I opened my grandfather's safety deposit box and found a leather ledger that would change everything. The ledger was small, barely larger than a paperback novel, with a worn brown cover and pages filled with my grandfather's meticulous handwriting, numbers, dates, receipts, years of careful documentation tracking something I had always felt but never been able to prove, that in the Doyle family, love was measured, and I had always come up short. But before I tell you about the surgery, before I tell you about the money, I need to tell you about the ledger, because that's where this really begins. Not in the hospital, not even in my childhood. It begins with my grandfather, Walter, who understood something fundamental about families and fairness. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. I'm standing in what used to be my grandfather's study, though it's mine now. The house sits on a hill outside Providence, Rhode Island, a small white clapboard structure with a view of the water that changes with the seasons. It's March 2026, and through the window, I can see the last remnants of winter melting into something that might become spring. On the desk in front of me is that same ledger. I don't open it much anymore. I don't need to. I know what it says. But sometimes, on mornings like this, I take it out just to remember that I'm not crazy, that the years of feeling invisible weren't in my head, that someone saw me, even when the people who should have been looking never did. My parents thought I was the easy daughter. They were half right. I was easy to overlook, but I was never easy to fool. Let me take you back. The money in my family didn't come from anywhere glamorous. No tech startup, no inheritance from distant relatives, no lottery win. It came from my grandfather, Walter Doyle, who built a commercial printing company from the ground up in 1962 and sold it to a regional competitor in 2005 for $2.3 million. Walter was the kind of man who believed in three things: hard work, fair treatment, and keeping immaculate records. He ran his business with a calculator and a conscience, and when he finally sold it at age 79, he did something deliberate with the money. He didn't spend it on a retirement mansion or a boat or trips around the world. He invested it carefully, grew it to $3.8 million by the time he died in 2018, and then he divided it with surgical precision. He had two sons, my father Dominic and my uncle James, who lives in Oregon and appears in this story exactly never because he took his inheritance, moved across the country, and built a quiet life that had nothing to do with what happened to us. When Walter died, he split his estate evenly, $1.9 million to each son. But that wasn't all. Years earlier, he'd established something else: 3 trust funds for his grandchildren. One for my older sister Elena, established in 1994. One for me, established in 1997, and one for my younger brother Victor, established in 2001, $200,000 each, set to mature when we turn 25. Walter believed in giving his grandchildren a foundation, a head start, something that would let us build lives without the crushing weight of debt that he'd carried in his early years. He set up these trusts when we were children, and he managed them carefully through a bank in Westfield, New Jersey, where my parents still live. The trusts were sacred to him, untouchable. He told me once, when I was 19 and visiting him in the nursing home during his final years, that he'd structured them specifically so our parents couldn't access them. At the time, I didn't understand why that mattered. "Your father is a good man," Walter had said, his hands shaking slightly as he held his coffee. "But good men make bad decisions when they're desperate to prove something. The trusts protect you from that." I nodded, not really listening. I was young. I thought I had time. I thought the people who loved me would act with the love I assumed they felt. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. Let me introduce you to the people who raised me, or more accurately, the people who raised my sister while I watched. Dominic Doyle, my father, is 58 years old now. He's a mid-level corporate attorney at a firm in Newark, the kind of lawyer who handles contracts and compliance, not courtroom drama. He makes a decent living, around $145,000 a year, which sounds comfortable until you realize he's been at the same level for 15 years. He never made partner. That fact lives in our house like a piece of furniture everyone walks around, but nobody mentions. My father believes in maintaining appearances. He wears pressed shirts every day, parts his hair on the left with religious precision, and drives a leased BMW that he replaces every 3 years exactly. He believes that if you look successful, you are successful, even when the credit card statements tell a different story. Clara Doyle, my mother, is 56. She was a third-grade teacher for 12 years before Elena was born, and then she became what she calls a full-time mother, though what that really meant was full-time manager of Elena's life. PTA president, volunteer coordinator, room parent, the woman who knew every teacher, every parent, every opportunity that could possibly benefit her eldest daughter. People describe my mother as warm, devoted, always smiling at school events, always first to volunteer for bake sales. And she is all of those things, just not equally for all of her children. Elena Doyle is my older sister. She's 31 now, 3 years ahead of me in age and approximately a decade ahead of me in parental attention. I need to be careful here because this isn't a story about hating my sister. Elena isn't a villain. She's not cruel. She's just someone who has moved through life with the absolute certainty that she is the sun and the rest of us are planets, and when you're the sun, you don't notice the shadows you cast. Elena talked early, walked early, read early. By middle school, she was student council president, lead in the school musical, captain of the debate team. She filled rooms the way light fills a window, effortlessly, completely. She's charismatic in that way. Some people just are, where they can walk into a party full of strangers and leave with 12 new friends and 3 job offers. My parents orbited her. That's not an exaggeration. That's just geography. Victor Doyle is my younger brother, 25 years old and currently finishing law school at Rutgers. Victor is the only person in my family who seems to exist in the same reality I do. He noticed things, he asked questions. When I was overlooked, he saw it. When I was dismissed, he remembered. Victor and I don't talk about it much. We don't need to. There's a recognition between people who've been background characters in someone else's story. And then there's me, the middle child, the quiet one, the daughter who didn't need anything, which meant I rarely got anything. I'm not going to tell you I was neglected in the traditional sense. I wasn't locked in closets or denied meals or beaten. The favoritism in my family was softer than that. More ordinary, almost invisible unless you were the one standing in the shadow. I started noticing it young, maybe 8 or 9, but I didn't have the language for it yet. I just knew that when Elena got a trophy, the whole family went out to dinner to celebrate. When I got a trophy, my mother put it on a shelf in my room and told me she was proud. When Elena turned 16 in 2010, my parents bought her a silver Honda Civic, brand new, $22,000, with a red bow on the hood and a card signed by both of them. My mother cried. My father filmed it on his phone. Elena drove it to school the next day and came home with a parking spot in the senior lot and 20 new Instagram followers. When I turned 16 in 2013, I got the keys to my father's 2009 Ford Focus. He'd bought it used in 2012, driven it for a year, and when he upgraded to the BMW lease, he handed me the keys with a shrug. It runs fine, Noelle, just be grateful. I was grateful. That was the problem. I'd been trained to expect less, so when I got less, I said thank you. The car had 87,000 miles on it. The air conditioning worked intermittently. There was a dent in the rear bumper from when my father backed into a shopping cart. There was no bow. There was no card. There was no celebration. There was just my father saying, "You're lucky to have a car at all. Most kids your age don't." He wasn't wrong, but Elena wasn't most kids. She was his kid, and so was I. College was worse. Elena applied to business programs on the East Coast. She got into 3 schools. My parents sat at the kitchen table with spreadsheets debating which offered the best return on investment. They chose NYU Stern. Tuition, $60,000 a year. Room and board, another $20,000. Books, fees, living expenses, more. They paid every cent. All 4 years. $180,000 given freely, happily, with the attitude that this was simply what parents did. My father said it outright at her graduation party in 2015. Elena's education is an investment in her future. That's what parents do. I was 18, about to start my own college search. I'd been accepted into the BFA program at Rutgers for graphic design. Good school, in-state tuition, reasonable choice. I brought the acceptance letter to that same kitchen table 2 months after Elena's graduation. My mother looked at it and smiled. "That's wonderful, honey. Have you looked into student loans?" I had. I took out $87,000 in loans. I worked 2 jobs through college, one at the campus bookstore, one doing freelance design work for local businesses. I paid every monthly payment myself from the day I graduated in 2019 until I made the final payment in 2024. 5 years of $1,450 a month every month on time. My parents never once asked how I was managing it. They never offered to help. They never acknowledged that there might be something unequal about paying for one daughter's education in full while the other borrowed her way through. When I tried to bring it up once, carefully, gently, in a conversation about Victor's upcoming college plans, my father said, "Elena's program was more expensive. Yours was in state. It wouldn't have been fair to spend the same amount on different value." I didn't argue. I'd learned by then that arguing required them to see me as someone worth arguing with. There's a wall in my parents' living room that runs from the edge of the fireplace to the doorway of the kitchen. My mother calls it the family wall. It's covered in framed photographs, moments she deemed important enough to display. I counted them once when I was 21, home for Thanksgiving. I didn't plan to count. I just happened to be standing there while Elena held court at the dinner table, telling some story about her first job in marketing, and I had nothing else to do. 18 photographs total, 13 of Elena, her first dance recital in a pink tutu, her high school graduation in cap and gown, her college move-in day standing in front of the NYU Arch, her at some marketing conference holding an award, her and my father at a golf event, both laughing at something off camera, her in front of a Christmas tree at age 7, 10, 16, her blowing out birthday candles at ages that apparently mattered more than mine. 3 of me. My kindergarten school picture, slightly crooked in its frame, a family photo from a vacation in Myrtle Beach where I'm partially hidden behind my mother's shoulder, and one candid shot of me drawing at the kitchen table, taken by my grandfather when I was 11. That photo exists on the wall only because Walter pointed out the imbalance during a visit, and my mother, embarrassed, hung it the next day. 2 of Victor, his Little League photo, one family portrait from 2015, 13, 3, 2. I never confronted them about it. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself that parents don't love their children equally in the same way. Some need more attention, more celebration, more visibility. Elena was louder, bigger, more ambitious. She needed the spotlight to thrive. And I was fine in the corner with my sketchbook. I was fine being the easy one. I was fine not needing anyone. That was the lie I carried into adulthood. That being overlooked was the same as being strong. That not needing anyone was a virtue, not a wound. I started keeping track in 2017, the summer after I turned 20. Not because I wanted to build a case, not because I was planning some future confrontation. I did it because I was studying design, and design is about clarity. It's about making the invisible visible. And I wanted to see if what I felt was real. I created a spreadsheet. Simple. 5 columns. Date, event, Elena's treatment, my treatment, financial impact. I didn't tell anyone. I just documented. December 25th, 2017. Christmas. Elena received an iPad Pro from our parents. Retail price, $800. I received a $50 Amazon gift card tucked into a Christmas card that said, "For my creative daughter, buy something that inspires you." Delta. $750. March 2018. Elena's car needed new tires. Our father paid $640. My car needed an oil change and a brake pad replacement. I paid $340. Delta. $640. My repairs didn't count because I handled them myself. August 2018. Elena got engaged. Our parents hosted an engagement party at a country club, $3,200. When I started dating someone seriously that same year, my mother took us out to dinner at Olive Garden and paid for the meal, $87. Delta, $3,113. I logged 347 entries between 2017 and 2020. Birthdays, holidays, car repairs, medical copays, gifts, vacations, celebrations. Every single discrepancy. And when I was done, when I tallied it all up, the number was staggering. Total parental investment difference over 12 years, $266,000. $266,000 more spent on Elena than on me. Not counting college, which would have added another $180,000. Not counting the trust fund, which I didn't know about yet. Just ordinary life. Ordinary choices. Ordinary proof that I was the daughter they invested in when they had money left over. I didn't do anything with the spreadsheet. I saved it to an encrypted folder on my laptop and tried to pretend I hadn't created it. Because what was I supposed to do? Walk into the living room and say, "I've been keeping receipts on your favoritism and here's the data"? You don't do that. Not in families like mine, where everything is fine and everyone is loved and we don't talk about uncomfortable things. So I stayed quiet. I stayed grateful. I stayed easy. And then my grandfather died. Walter Doyle passed away in May 2018 at the age of 92. Heart failure, peaceful, in his sleep at the nursing home where he'd spent his final 2 years. I was 21, about to start my senior year of college. We had the funeral on a Saturday. The whole family came, cousins I barely knew, business associates from his printing days, neighbors from the old house. I gave a eulogy. I talked about how he'd taught me to keep records, to value precision, to understand that love could be measured in the small, consistent actions people took when no one was watching. I talked about the afternoons I'd spent in his study as a kid, watching him balance his company's books by hand, the way he'd let me sit beside him and color while he worked. My mother cried during the eulogy. I thought she was crying for Walter. Later, I realized she might have been crying because she knew what was coming. Walter's will was read 2 weeks after the funeral. The estate was divided as I mentioned. $1.9 million to my father, $1.9 million to Uncle James. The trust funds for us grandchildren were mentioned briefly. $200,000 each, managed by our parents as co-trustees until we turned 25, at which point the funds would transfer to us directly. I was 3 years away from 25. I didn't think much about it. I had student loans to worry about. I had graduation coming. I had a life to build. What I didn't know was that my father and mother had already been named co-trustees 2 years earlier in 2016, when Walter had his first stroke and the bank required a younger co-signer for legal protection. It was procedural, protective, a formality. At least that's what it was supposed to be. What I also didn't know was that in June 2019, 1 month before I turned 22, my parents transferred $180,000 from my trust fund into my sister's bank account. I didn't know because no one told me. I didn't find out until October 2020 when I woke up in an ICU bed after emergency surgery and my grandfather's attorney handed me a key to a safety deposit box that contained the truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the surgery first, because that's when everything changed. That's when the family I thought I had revealed itself to be something else entirely. That's when I stopped being the easy daughter, and that's when I learned that my grandfather, even in death, had been keeping score. But I need to go back to September 2020 when everything started, before the ledger, before I knew the truth, back to when I was just a 23-year-old woman with a pain she couldn't ignore. The pain started on a Tuesday morning in early September 2020, the kind of pain that makes you stop mid-sentence and press your hand against your abdomen, wondering if you pulled something, ate something wrong, or if your body is trying to tell you something you're not ready to hear. I was sitting at my desk in my apartment in Rutgers, New Jersey, a one-bedroom place I could barely afford on freelance income, but it was mine, and that mattered. I was working on a logo redesign for a local coffee shop, and the pain hit sharp enough that I had to close my laptop and lie down on the floor for 20 minutes until it passed. It came back 3 days later, then again. Then it stopped being something that came and went and became something that just stayed. A dull, constant presence on my right side, like someone pressing their thumb into my abdomen and forgetting to let go. By September 10th, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The pain had gotten worse, sharper, and I'd lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks without trying. I went to the ER at Valley Medical Center in Ridgewood, the same hospital where I'd been born 23 years earlier, which felt like some kind of bitter poetry. They did a CT scan. The radiologist's face when she came back with the images told me everything before she said a word. "There's a mass on your right ovary," she said gently, "approximately 8 centimeters. You need to see a specialist immediately." 8 centimeters. For reference, that's about the size of a small orange, growing inside me, pressing against things it shouldn't be pressing against. I called my primary care physician from the ER parking lot. She referred me to Dr. Sarah Reeves, a gynecologic surgeon at Valley Medical with 20 years of experience. I got an appointment for September 22nd. 12 days of waiting, 12 days of the mass sitting inside me, 12 days of Googling things I shouldn't Google at 2 a.m. Dr. Sarah Reeves was in her early 50s with short gray hair and the kind of calm, direct manner that made you trust her immediately. Her office smelled like hand sanitizer and lavender, and there was a framed photo on her desk of 2 teenage boys I assumed were her sons. She pulled up my scans on her computer monitor and turned it so I could see. The mass looked like a dark shadow, irregular in shape, pressing against my ovary like it was trying to consume it. "Miss Doyle," she said, "this is what we call a complex ovarian mass. Based on the imaging, I suspect it's a dermoid cyst or possibly a borderline tumor. We won't know for certain until we remove it and send it to pathology. Remove it, I repeated. Surgery. A laparotomy, most likely, given the size and location. We'll need to make an incision here, she gestured to her own abdomen. Remove the mass, and depending on what we find, possibly the ovary itself. You'll be under general anesthesia. Recovery time is typically 6 to 8 weeks. She paused, studying my face. I'm going to be very clear with you, Noelle. This is not a minor procedure. The mass is large, and it's positioned in a way that concerns me. There's vascular involvement, meaning it's near blood vessels. There's risk of hemorrhage during removal. There's risk of damage to surrounding tissue. This is serious surgery. I felt my hands go cold. How serious? Serious enough that you should have someone with you, not just for emotional support, but because the first 24 to 48 hours post-op are critical. You'll need someone to advocate for you if complications arise. What kind of complications? Doctor. Reeves listed them with clinical precision. Bleeding, infection, blood clots, organ damage, anesthesia reactions, cardiac events. She used the word serious 3 times. She never once used the word minor. When can you do it? I asked. I have an opening on October 15th. That's about 3 weeks from now. I don't recommend waiting longer than that. I took the date, I signed the consent forms, I scheduled the pre-op appointment, and then I sat in my car in the hospital parking garage for 15 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, trying to remember how to breathe. I called my parents that evening, September 24th. Conference call, both of them on the line. I'd prepared what I wanted to say, rehearsed it in my head during the drive home. I need to tell you something, I started. I have a mass on my right ovary, 8 centimeters. I'm having surgery on October 15th to remove it. Dr. Reeves, she's the surgeon, said it's serious. There are risks. I need to be in the hospital for at least 1 night, maybe 2. Silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice, careful and measured. A mass? Honey, that sounds like a cyst. I had one of those in my 30s. They're very common. Mom, it's not. 8 centimeters does sound large, my father interrupted. But these things are usually benign, right? Did the doctor say benign? She said we won't know until after surgery. But she used the word serious multiple times. She said there's risk of bleeding, risk of... Doctors always say that, my father said. It's liability protection. They have to list every possible thing that could go wrong, even if the chance is 1 in a million. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. Dad, she specifically told me this isn't a routine procedure. Well, of course not. It's surgery, but you're young and healthy. You'll be fine. My mother made a small sound on the other end of the line. October 15th, you said? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. I heard my mother say something to my father, her hand probably over the receiver, but I couldn't make out the words. Noelle, my mother said finally, that's the same weekend as Elena's launch party. Elena's launch party. Of course. My sister had been planning it for months, the official launch of her lifestyle consulting business, Elevate Lifestyle Consulting. She'd rented a space in Manhattan, invited 100 people, hired a photographer, a caterer. It was going to be the event that announced her arrival as an entrepreneur. The party was scheduled for the evening of October 16th, the day after my surgery. I know, I said quietly. The timing isn't great. Can you reschedule? My mother asked. Maybe push it to the following week or even November? Dr. Reeves said she doesn't recommend waiting. But surely a week or 2 wouldn't make that much difference. I mean, you've had this thing for a while already, right? Mom, we've already booked the hotel in Manhattan, my father said. We're driving up on the 15th. The party is a big deal for Elena. A lot of important people will be there. Investors, potential clients. We can't miss it. I stared at the wall of my apartment. At a framed print I'd designed myself during college. Abstract shapes in muted blues and grays, the kind of art that disappears into the background. I'm having surgery, I said. Major surgery. The doctor said I need someone with me. And you'll have someone, my mother said brightly. You have that friend. What's her name? Taylor? She'll be there, won't she? Taylor Kim. My college roommate, my closest friend, the person who'd seen me through breakups and finals and every crisis I'd had since freshman year. Taylor's not family, I said. But she cares about you, my mother countered. And honestly, sweetheart, you'll probably be asleep most of the time anyway. These surgeries are very quick these days. You'll be in and out by lunchtime, and by the time you wake up, we'll probably be on our way back from the party. We'll call you the second the ceremony is over." The ceremony? She meant the party. She was calling Elena's business launch party a ceremony. "What if something goes wrong?" I asked. The question came out smaller than I intended. My father sighed, the kind of sigh that said I was being difficult. "Nothing is going to go wrong, Noelle. You're catastrophizing. The doctor has to tell you worst-case scenarios. That's their job. But realistically, you'll be fine. You've always been fine. You've always been fine." There it was, the summary of my entire existence in the Doyle family. Noelle is fine. Noelle doesn't need anything. Noelle can handle it. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Okay, you're right. Taylor will be there." "That's my girl," my father said. "You're tough, kiddo. You'll get through this no problem." We talked for another 5 minutes about logistics that didn't matter. My mother asked about my insurance coverage. My father reminded me to bring my insurance card to the hospital. Neither of them asked how I was feeling. Neither of them offered to cancel their plans. When we hung up, I sat on my couch in the dark and called Taylor. "I need you on October 15th, I told her. "I'm there," she said immediately. "What time?" I loved her for not asking questions first. I loved her for not making me explain why my parents wouldn't be there. She already knew. October 15th, 2020, surgery day. I arrived at Valley Medical Center at 5:45 a.m. The sky was still dark, that heavy autumn dark that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. Taylor met me in the lobby with coffee she knew I couldn't drink. Nothing by mouth after midnight, but the gesture mattered. We checked in at the admissions desk. The woman behind the counter, whose name tag said Brenda, asked for my emergency contact information. "Judith Doyle," I said, giving my mother's number, "but she won't be available today." Brenda looked up. "Is there someone else we should call in case of emergency?" "Taylor Kim." I spelled the last name. Taylor wrote down her number. Brenda printed out my wristband, and we took the elevator to the third-floor pre-operative area. It was a long room divided by curtains into individual bays. I was assigned Bay 4. The curtain was a faded blue-green, the color of something that had been washed 1,000 times. I changed into the hospital gown. Taylor helped me tie the back because I couldn't reach the top string. A nurse named Colleen came in, early 40s, kind eyes, the kind of nurse who makes you feel like everything might actually be okay, and started my IV. "Family coming?" she asked as she taped the line to my hand. I'd prepared for this question. "My friend is here. My parents had a prior commitment." Colleen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. She placed a warm blanket over my legs without me asking. "I'll check on you every 15 minutes until we go," she said. "You're not alone in here, okay?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. At 7:15 a.m., 2 orderlies came to wheel me to the operating room. Taylor squeezed my hand. "I'll be right here when you wake up," she said. I wanted to ask her to call my mother. I wanted to beg her to make one more attempt to get them to come, but I didn't, because I already knew what they'd say. They wheeled me down a long corridor and through double doors into the OR. It was cold and bright, filled with equipment I didn't recognize. Dr. Reeves was already there, scrubbed and ready. The anesthesiologist placed a mask over my face. "Count backwards from 10, he said. 10, 9, 8. The last thing I remember thinking was that somewhere, 4 hours north, my parents were probably having breakfast at a hotel in Manhattan. 7. What I'm about to tell you, I learned later. Pieced together from Taylor, from medical records, from Dr. Reeves herself when I was strong enough to ask, because I wasn't there for any of it. I was somewhere else, somewhere chemical and dark, while my body became a problem other people had to solve. 7:35 a.m. Operating room, Valley Medical Center. Surgery begins. Dr. Reeves makes the incision, accesses the abdominal cavity. The mass is visible immediately, and it's larger than the imaging suggested. Not 8 centimeters, closer to 10. 7:35 a.m. Manhattan. Dominic and Clara Doyle check out of their hotel. They have a full day planned, vendor meetings at 9 a.m. for Elena's party, final walkthrough of the event space at 11 a.m., lunch with Elena and her business partner at 1 p.m. The party doesn't start until 6 p.m., but there's so much to do. Clara is wearing a navy dress she bought specifically for tonight. Dominic is in his best suit. 8:15 a.m., or doctor. Reeves attempts to separate the mass from the ovary. It's adhered to surrounding tissue, scar-like bands that have fused it to the peritoneum. She works carefully, but when she makes the first separation, a small vessel tears. Blood begins to pool faster than suction can clear it. My blood pressure drops. 8:15 a.m., Manhattan. Clara posts on Facebook a photo of the event space, empty and elegant, with the caption, "Big day for my girl. So proud of this amazing woman and her dreams." She uses 3 heart emojis. 9:40 a.m. or "The bleeding is worse. Dr. Reeves calls for a vascular surgeon. My blood pressure continues to drop. The anesthesiologist pushes medication, adjusts my fluids, calls out numbers that make the room go quiet. Colleen, the pre-op nurse, steps out to call my emergency contact. She reaches Taylor in the waiting room. The surgery is taking longer than expected, Colleen says carefully. She's stable, but there have been complications. Is family on the way? I'm trying to reach them, Taylor says. She's been calling my parents' cell phones every 30 minutes since 8 a.m. Neither of them has answered. 9:40 a.m., Manhattan, vendor tasting. My mother samples 3 different canapé options, trying to decide between the smoked salmon and the prosciutto-wrapped asparagus. My father takes photos of the floral arrangements for the centerpieces. Elena arrives, radiant in a cream-colored dress, her hair already styled for tonight. She hugs both parents. "This is really happening," she says, laughing. "I can't believe this is really happening." My mother cries happy tears. 11:10 a.m. or the vascular surgeon, Dr. Anon, has arrived. Together, she and Dr. Reeves work to clamp the bleeding vessel. My blood pressure stabilizes briefly, then drops again. They order a blood transfusion. 2 units. I develop a cardiac arrhythmia, stress-induced, brief, but serious enough that everything stops while they administer medication to correct it. My heart steadies. The surgery continues. 11:10 a.m., Manhattan. Elena's business partner makes a toast with champagne. Technically too early for champagne, but who's counting? They're celebrating. Dominic films it on his phone. Clara texts Elena. "This is the proudest moment of my life." Elena hearts the message. 1:20 p.m. or 5 hours and 45 minutes into the surgery, Dr. Reeves successfully removes the mass. But the adhesions caused more damage than anticipated. There's a small tear in the peritoneum that needs repair. Another vessel is bleeding. Dr. Reeves makes the decision. ICU post-op, not the regular recovery room. This patient needs intensive monitoring. 1:20 p.m., Manhattan. Lunch at an upscale Italian restaurant. My father orders the special. My mother has the Caesar salad. Elena talks about her vision for the company, her 5-year plan, the clients she's already secured. My parents listen like she's delivering a TED Talk. My father says, "You're going to change the world, sweetheart." 1:25 p.m. Taylor's phone rings. Dr. Reeves calling from the hospital. "Miss Kim, I'm Dr. Sarah Reeves. I need to speak with Noelle Doyle's family. She's out of surgery, but she's in the ICU. There were significant complications during the procedure." "What kind of complications?" Taylor's voice is shaking. Dr. Reeves explains, using words Taylor doesn't fully understand but knows are bad. Hemorrhage, transfusion, arrhythmia, intensive care. "Where are her parents?" Dr. Reeves asks. "They're in New York for a family event." A pause. Long enough that Taylor knows Dr. Reeves understands exactly what kind of family event could matter more than this. "I see," Dr. Reeves says. "Please have them call me as soon as possible." Taylor tries calling my parents again, and again, and again. 6 p.m., Manhattan. The party begins. 100 guests fill the event space. There's a photographer, a live jazz trio, a signature cocktail named The Elevate. Elena gives a speech thanking everyone who believed in her, especially her parents, who sacrificed so much to help her reach this moment. Clara cries again. Dominic films again. 6:45 p.m. Between posed photos and networking conversations, Clara finally checks her phone. 7 missed calls from a number she doesn't recognize. 3 voicemails from Taylor. She steps into the bathroom, listens to the first voicemail. Her face goes white. She calls back the hospital number. Dr. Reeves answers. "Mrs. Doyle, your daughter is in the ICU. I've been trying to reach you for hours. We were at an event. My phone was on silent. Is she... What happened?" Dr. Reeves explains. The complications, the hemorrhage, the transfusion, the arrhythmia, the words serious and critical and intensive care. I'll be right there, Clara says. Mrs. Doyle, you're in Manhattan. The hospital is in New Jersey. That's at least 90 minutes, possibly 2 hours with traffic. We're leaving now. Clara finds Dominic in the crowd. She doesn't say anything, just shows him her phone screen with the missed calls. They find Elena, pull her aside, whisper the news. Elena's face crumples. Oh my God, is she okay? She's stable, Clara says, though Dr. Reeves never actually used that word. But we need to go. Should I come with you? Clara hesitates, just for a second, but it's long enough. Stay, she says. This is your night. There's nothing you can do at the hospital anyway. We'll call you with updates. Elena nods, relieved. Okay, tell her I love her. My parents leave the party at 10:15 p.m. They drive south through the night, barely speaking. They arrive at Valley Medical Center at 11:40 p.m., 16 hours after my surgery began. I woke up at 2 a.m. The pain was the first thing. Deep, pulling, everywhere. The second thing was the tube in my throat. The third thing was Taylor's face, exhausted and tear-stained, beside my bed. Hey, she whispered. You're okay. You're out of surgery. I tried to talk but couldn't. She pressed the call button. A nurse came, not Colleen, someone from the night shift, and explained that I was in the ICU, that the surgery had complications, that I'd be here for observation for at least 24 hours. Your parents are here, the nurse said. They're in the waiting room. Do you want to see them? I shook my head. Taylor waited until the nurse left, then she leaned close. There's something else, she said quietly. Your grandfather's attorney called me yesterday, Mr. Gerald Preston. He said there's something in Walter's safety deposit box that you need to see. Documents. He said, Walter left instructions that if you were ever medically incapacitated, you needed to access them within 30 days. I stared at her. He tried calling your parents first, Taylor continued. They didn't answer, so he called me. I'm your emergency contact on some old paperwork from when your grandfather was alive. He said it was urgent. She pulled something from her bag, a small silver key. He had this couriered to the hospital this morning. He said Walter predicted you'd need it someday. She placed the key in my hand. I closed my fingers around it, feeling the cold metal press into my palm. And even through the pain, through the medication, through the exhaustion, I understood. My grandfather had been keeping score, and now it was my turn to see what he'd found. I spent 3 more days in the ICU before they moved me to a regular room. 3 days of monitors beeping, nurses checking vitals every 2 hours, pain that made breathing feel like negotiation. The pathology results came back on day 2. Benign. The mass was a mature cystic teratoma, complex, stubborn, tangled in places it shouldn't have been, but not cancer. When Dr. Reeves told me, I cried. Not from relief, though that was part of it. I cried because I was alive, and for approximately 6 hours during that surgery, that outcome hadn't been guaranteed. My parents visited twice during my hospital stay. The first time was the morning after they arrived, October 16th at 8 a.m. They stayed 30 minutes. My mother brought flowers from the hospital gift shop, carnations, the cheapest option, still in the plastic wrapper with the $12.99 price sticker visible. My father stood at the foot of my bed and asked when I'd be discharged. They're saying another few days, I told him, my voice hoarse from the breathing tube. That long? He frowned. Will insurance cover all of this? Not, how are you feeling? Not, we're so sorry we weren't here, just insurance logistics. The second visit was October 19th, the day before my discharge. 20 minutes this time. My mother talked about Elena's party, how beautiful it was, how many important people attended, how proud they were. She showed me photos on her phone. Elena in her cream dress, the event space decorated with white flowers and gold accents, a champagne tower that must have cost a fortune. She wanted to come visit you, my mother said, but she's been so busy following up with all the contacts she made at the party. You understand. I understood perfectly. My father asked if I needed anything. I said I was fine. He looked relieved. They left before lunch. Elena sent flowers too, a proper arrangement this time. Roses and lilies, with a card that said, Feel better soon, sis. Can't wait to catch up when you're recovered. Love you. The flowers were beautiful. They probably cost $150. I wondered if she'd expense them to her new business. I was discharged on October 20th. Taylor drove me home, helped me up the stairs to my apartment. made sure I had my medications organized, my fridge stocked, my phone charger within reach. She stayed that night, sleeping on my couch, waking up every time I moved in case I needed help. "You don't have to do this," I told her. "I know," she said. "That's why I'm doing it." Recovery was slow and painful. The incision ran across my lower abdomen, held together with staples that would need to be removed in 2 weeks. I couldn't lift anything heavier than a phone. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work. I spent my days on the couch rotating between Netflix shows I didn't care about and naps that left me more exhausted than before. But through it all, through the pain and the medication fog and the frustration, I kept thinking about the key. It sat on my nightstand in a small dish, catching the light whenever I turned my head. Taylor had told me about Walter's attorney, about the safety deposit box, about the 30-day deadline. We were on day 8 now. I had 22 days left. On October 23rd, 1 week post-surgery, I called Gerald Preston. Gerald Preston had been my grandfather's attorney for over 40 years. I'd met him a handful of times, at the funeral, at the will reading, once or twice at Walter's nursing home. He was in his early 70s now, with white hair and kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent his life listening to other people's problems. We arranged to meet at Valley Bank in Westfield on October 23rd at 10 a.m. Taylor drove me because I still couldn't manage it myself. I moved slowly, carefully, one hand pressed against my abdomen where the staples pulled. Preston met us in the lobby. He shook Taylor's hand, then mine, gently, like he knew I was fragile. "Miss Doyle," he said, "I'm glad you're recovering. I apologize for the timing of this, but Walter's instructions were very specific." "What instructions?" I asked. "Let's get somewhere private first." We followed him to the bank's safety deposit box room, a small windowless space with a table and 2 chairs. The bank manager brought out box number 847, set it on the table, and left us alone. Preston opened it. Inside were 4 items: a leather ledger, a manila folder containing documents, a stack of bank statements held together with a rubber band, and a sealed envelope with my name written on it in my grandfather's handwriting. Preston picked up the envelope. "Walter asked that I read this to you first. He wanted to make sure you heard it in his voice." He opened the envelope carefully, unfolded the letter, 3 pages, single-spaced, written in the same precise script I remembered from birthday cards, and began to read. "My dearest Noelle, if you're reading this, it means Gerald has determined you're in a position where you need to see the truth. I wish I could tell you this in person, but my heart had other plans. I'm sorry for that. I wanted more time with you. I established 3 trust funds in 1994, 1997, and 2001, one for each of my grandchildren, $200,000 each, invested carefully, meant to mature when you turn 25. I wanted you all to have a foundation, a chance to start your adult lives without the weight I carried in mine. A trust is sacred, Noelle. It's not just money. It's a promise, a commitment from one generation to the next that says, I see you, I believe in you, and I want you to have better than I did. In 2015, your father approached me about Elena. She was graduating college and wanted to start a business. He asked to borrow against her trust just until it matured. I said no. I explained that the trust was designed to be untouchable for exactly this reason, to prevent well-meaning people from making short-sighted decisions. He asked again in 2016. I said no again. In 2017, I had my first stroke. I was 83 years old, and suddenly I wasn't just old. I was fragile. The bank required someone younger to be co-trustee with me, someone who could manage the accounts if I became incapacitated. Your father was the logical choice. He's an attorney. He's responsible. He's my son. I thought it was safe. I was wrong. Noelle, in June 2019, 1 month before you turned 22, 3 years before your trust was set to mature, your parents transferred $180,000 from your trust fund into Elena's business bank account. They used a legal loophole called familial benefit transfer. As co-trustees, they had the authority to move money between family trusts if they could demonstrate that the transfer would benefit all family members. They filed paperwork claiming that Elena's business would eventually create jobs and opportunities for the whole family, including you. They got it notarized. The bank processed it. Your trust should have grown to approximately $235,000 by the time you turned 25 in July 2022. Instead, you received $23,400. Your parents told you it was the full amount. You believed them because why wouldn't you? Elena's trust matured in August 2019, 1 month after yours. She received her full amount, $237,000 with accumulated interest. Your parents gave her a check at her 27th birthday party. You were there. I saw the photo on your mother's Facebook. Elena used that money, plus the $180,000 stolen from your trust, to start her consulting business in September 2020. Total startup capital, $415,000. The business registration is public record in New York. I had my accountant verify it. I found out about the transfer in November 2019 during my annual account review. I was in the nursing home by then, barely able to walk, my mind slipping in and out like a radio losing signal. My lawyer, Gerald, who's reading this to you now, said that litigation would take years. The transfer was technically legal. Proving that it violated fiduciary duty would require extensive court battles that would destroy what's left of this family. I was too ill to fight it myself, so I did something else. I changed my will. The estate you know about, the one Gerald read in 2018 after I died, was my 2010 will. It divides my remaining estate normally, 50% to your father, 25% to you, 25% to Victor. But I also created a conditional will, a backup plan that only activates if certain circumstances are met. Specifically, if evidence of financial exploitation is presented within 5 years of my death. That will has different terms. The ledger in this box documents every financial decision your parents made regarding you versus Elena from 2015 to 2019. Every gift, every payment, every discrepancy. I hired a private accountant to verify all of it. The records are court admissible. The bank statements show the trust fund transfer, dates, amounts, authorization signatures. Your signature on the familial benefit form was forged. I had a handwriting analyst confirm it. If you choose to use this evidence, if you invoke the conditional will, here's what happens. Victor receives $100,000 outright. He's innocent in all of this, and he deserves something secure. You receive $1,600,000 in a protected trust that your parents cannot access or contest. The remaining $200,000 goes to the American Cancer Society in your name. Your grandmother Ruth died of cancer, and I always meant to make that donation, but never got around to it. Maybe you can do it for me. Your father's inheritance under this condition, 0. But Noelle, if you choose not to use this, if you decide that peace is worth more than justice, then my 2010 will stands. Your father gets his 50%. You and Victor split the rest. The family stays intact, at least on paper. This is your choice, not revenge, restitution. You don't have to use this, but you deserve to know. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I lived. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening until it was too late. I'm sorry that the people who should have loved you equally chose not to. But I saw you, Noelle. I counted what they refused to count. And I made sure that even from here, I could give you the choice they never did. All my love, Grandpa P.S. Gerald has a second envelope for you. Open it only if you decide to proceed. It contains the legal pathway. But take your time. Think carefully. And know that whatever you choose, I'm proud of you. Preston finished reading and folded the letter carefully. The room was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed around something too big to swallow. Taylor's hand found mine under the table. Preston slid the ledger toward me. Would you like to see it? I opened it with shaking hands. The pages were filled with Walter's meticulous handwriting, dates in the left column, events in the middle, financial details on the right. Every entry cross-referenced with receipts, bank statements, photographs. Years of careful documentation. August 2015. Elena's college graduation gift, $5,000. Check number 4782. Noelle's college graduation gift, 2019. $250. Card with cash. December 2016. Christmas. Elena. MacBook Pro. $2,400. Noelle. External hard drive, $89. March 2018. Elena's car repair, transmission. $2,800 paid by Dominic, check number 5921. Noelle's car repair, brake pads. $340 paid by Noelle, personal funds. June 2019. Trust fund transfer. $180,000 from Noelle Doyle Trust, account number HS4782, to Elena Doyle business account. Account number SS9103. Authorization, Dominic Doyle, Clara Doyle, co-trustees. Beneficiary signature. Forged. Page after page. transaction after transaction, a complete accounting of everything they'd given Elena that they hadn't given me. On the last page, Walter had written one final note. A parent's job is to lift all their children, not to use one as a ladder for another. I closed the ledger. How much? I asked Preston. My voice sounded strange, distant. How much did they spend on her versus me? Walter's accountant calculated approximately $266,000 over 12 years, not including the trust fund theft. If you include that, the total disparity is $446,000. $446,000. That was the numerical value of being the easy daughter, the quiet one, the one who didn't need anything. I spent the next 2 weeks recovering physically and investigating financially. Taylor helped. She worked from my apartment most days, bringing her laptop and sitting beside me on the couch while we both worked in comfortable silence. I started with Elena's business. Elevate Lifestyle Consulting, LLC. The business registration was public record in New York, just like Walter said. Filed September 10th, 2020. Initial capital, $215,000. But something wasn't adding up. I found Elena's company website. It listed an office address in Manhattan, a co-working space that charged $9,000 per month for private offices. I found her LinkedIn. 8 employees hired between September and October. I calculated salaries, overhead, operating expenses. The business was burning approximately $15,000 per month, maybe more. I searched for client reviews, press mentions, anything that would indicate revenue. There were 12 Yelp reviews total. 6 were from friends I recognized from Elena's Facebook. The others were generic 5-star reviews that looked suspiciously like they'd been written by the same person. In November 2020, I created a burner email account and sent an inquiry to Elena's business, pretending to be a potential client. The auto response said they were experiencing high demand and would get back to me within 48 hours. No one ever did. My sister's business, the one funded with my stolen trust money, was failing. The $180,000 that should have been mine was gone, spent on Manhattan rent and employee salaries and a website and business cards and a launch party that cost probably $30,000. And Elena had no idea. She genuinely believed our parents had taken a loan against their house to fund her dream. That's what they told her. That's what she believed. The money was unrecoverable. If the business failed, when it failed, there would be nothing left to claim. Just debt and furniture and a LinkedIn page that would eventually go dormant. I sat with that knowledge for days, staring at spreadsheets, at bank statements, at the gap between what should have been and what was. On November 15th, 2020, my phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Victor, hey, Mom mentioned you had some medical bills from the surgery. Can I help? I know law school loans suck, but I've got about $2,000 saved up if you need it. I stared at that text for a long time. Victor, 23 years old, drowning in student debt, working part-time at a law firm while taking a full course load, offering me money he couldn't afford to give. Meanwhile, my parents, who had taken $180,000 from my trust fund to give to Elena, had contributed exactly $0 to my $6,140 in medical bills. Elena had sent a Venmo payment for $50 with a note that said, 4 flowers, feel better, $50, from the business funded with my money. I texted Victor back, you're amazing, but I'm okay. Thank you for offering. Seriously. Then I walked to my desk, opened the drawer where I'd been keeping Preston's second envelope, and broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Title, Legal Pathway for Invoking Conditional Will, prepared by Gerald Preston, Esquire. 4 phases, 4 steps to justice. Phase 1, documentation. Weeks 1 to 4, gather all financial records. Build timeline. Do not alert family. Phase 2, legal consultation. Week 5, meet with a state attorney. Determine viability. File preliminary paperwork under seal. Phase 3, strategic disclosure. Weeks 6 to 8, approach parents privately with evidence. Offer settlement. Return $180,000 or face court. Give 30 days to respond. Phase 4, execution. Month 3 plus. If refused, file formal contest. Invoke conditional will. Make it public record. At the bottom, Preston had written in his own handwriting, Walter hoped your parents would do the right thing if confronted privately. Give them that chance, but if they don't hesitate. You've hesitated enough in your life. I read that line 3 times. You've hesitated enough in your life. He was right. I'd spent 23 years hesitating, being quiet, being easy, being grateful for less. I thought about Victor's text, about Taylor sleeping on my couch for a week, about Dr. Reeves calling my emergency contact while my parents were drinking champagne. I thought about the ledger, about Walter spending his final years documenting what everyone else refused to see. I thought about Elena's business burning through my money at $15,000 a month while she posted Instagram stories about #entrepreneurlife. And I made my decision. I wasn't going to hesitate anymore. I opened my laptop, composed an email to Gerald Preston, and typed 4 words. I want to proceed. And then I attached a document, my own spreadsheet, the one I'd been keeping since 2017. 347 entries of my own documentation, my own ledger. Walter had taught me to keep score, and I'd been a very good student. Gerald Preston responded to my email within an hour. I'll begin the preliminary work immediately. In the meantime, I'm connecting you with Rebecca Wu. She's an estate and trust attorney who specializes in fiduciary duty cases. She's expecting your call. I called Rebecca Wu that afternoon. She was in her early 40s with a voice that managed to be both warm and intimidating. The kind of attorney who probably smiled at opposing counsel right before destroying their case. Her office was in Princeton, about 30 minutes from my apartment. We scheduled a consultation for November 20th. I spent the 5 days before that meeting building my case. I went through every email, text message, bank statement, and receipt I could find from the past 8 years. I organized them chronologically in a master spreadsheet that would have made Walter proud. Every entry included the date, the event, what Elena received, what I received, the financial delta, and links to supporting documentation. By the time I was done, I had a 47-page document with 347 individual entries. The medical bills from my surgery arrived on November 18th. Total, $87,340 before insurance. After insurance, $6,140 as my responsibility. My parents' contribution, $0. Elena's Venmo payment of $50 was the only financial support I received from my family. I added it to the spreadsheet, October 15th, 2020, emergency surgery plus ICU stay. Elena, $50 Venmo, for flowers, parents, $0, Delta, $6,090 in uncovered costs. I also documented the surgery day itself, my parents' absence, the 16-hour delay. The fact that they attended Elena's business launch party while I was hemorrhaging on an operating table. I couldn't assign a dollar value to that, but I documented it anyway. On November 20th, Taylor drove me to Rebecca Wu's office in Princeton. I was 6 weeks post-surgery, finally able to sit in a car for more than 20 minutes without wanting to cry from the pain. Wu's office was in a renovated Victorian house, her conference room filled with law books and framed diplomas. She was exactly as I'd imagined from her voice. Sharp-eyed, expensively dressed, the kind of person who missed nothing. I handed her Walter's ledger, Preston's documents, and my own spreadsheet. She spent 40 minutes reading in silence while I sat across from her, hands folded in my lap, trying to look like someone who wasn't terrified of what came next. Finally, she looked up. "This is one of the most well-documented cases of fiduciary duty breach I've ever seen," she said. "Your grandfather did exceptional work, and frankly, so did you." "What are my chances?" I asked. "In court? 85%, maybe 90%. With this level of documentation, it's not even a question of if you'd win. It's a question of how quickly. But court takes time, 18 to 24 months, legal fees of $40,000 to $60,000. I felt my stomach drop. "I don't have that kind of money." "I know, but you don't need it, because Walter was smarter than that. His conditional will bypasses probate court entirely. If you invoke it, Gerald Preston simply executes the terms as written. Your parents can challenge it, but they'd have to prove Walter was mentally incompetent when he wrote it, and given the documentation," and she tapped the ledger. "They can't." "So what do I do?" Wu leaned forward. "You give them a choice. You approach them privately with the evidence. You offer them a settlement. Return the $180,000 within 90 days, or you invoke the conditional will and your father loses his inheritance. Most people, when confronted with irrefutable proof, will take the settlement. And if they don't, then you pull the trigger. Preston executes the conditional will. Your father gets 0, you get 1.6 million. Victor gets 100,000. It's clean, it's legal, and it's final. She paused, studying my face. Noelle, I need you to understand something. When you confront them, they're going to say they borrowed the money with intent to repay. They're going to say Elena's business will eventually benefit everyone. They're going to make you feel like you're destroying the family over money. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the photo wall, 13 to 3. I thought about the surgery, 16 hours. I thought about Victor's text offering me money he didn't have. I'm prepared to be right, I said. Wu smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just accepted a case she knew she'd win. Then let's get started. Between November 20th and December 31st, I prepared for war. Wu filed preliminary paperwork under seal, legal groundwork that would let us move quickly if my parents refused the settlement. I opened a new bank account they didn't know about and transferred my savings there. I made copies of everything, physical and digital, and stored them in 3 separate locations. I wrote the letter to my parents. 8 drafts, 8 attempts to find words that were clear without being cruel, firm without being vindictive. The final version was 1 page. Mom and Dad, I need to meet with you to discuss Grandpa Walter's estate and my trust fund. There are discrepancies that require immediate attention. Please attend a meeting at the offices of Rebecca Wu, Esquire, on January 15th, 2021 at 2 p.m. Address attached. You may bring your attorney if you wish. This is not optional. Noelle. I had it sent via certified mail on January 2nd, 2021. Receipt confirmation required. Then I waited. My mother called 18 times in the first 3 days. I didn't answer any of them. The voicemails escalated from concerned to confused to angry. Voicemail 1, January 2nd, 6:47 p.m. Honey, we got your letter. What is this about? You're worrying me. Please call back. Voicemail 5, January 3rd, 11:23 a.m. Noelle, this isn't funny. We don't understand what we did wrong. Why do we need an attorney? Voicemail 12, January 4th, 8:15 p.m. Your father is very upset. We've been nothing but supportive of you. If you need money for medical bills, all you had to do was ask. Voicemail 18, January 6th, 10:02 a.m. Fine, we'll be there. But I hope you know what you're doing. This is going to hurt people, Noelle. I saved every voicemail. More documentation. My father didn't call. He texted once. We'll attend your meeting. This better be important. And Elena texted me on January 4th. Mom said you're having some legal thing with the family. What's going on? Why am I out of the loop? Did I do something wrong? I didn't respond. Elena wasn't the target. She'd find out eventually, but not from me. Victor called on January 7th. Hey, he said carefully. So, Dad pulled me aside yesterday and asked if you'd said anything to me about Grandpa's will. I told him no. Should I be worried? You're going to be fine, Victor. I promise this has nothing to do with you. It has to do with Elena? Sort of, but not the way you think. Noelle, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. Just stay neutral, okay? Don't take sides. Don't let them pressure you into choosing. Okay, he said slowly. But if you need anything, I know. Thank you. After we hung up, I added a note to my files. Victor offered support without knowing details, compared to parents' response. The days crawled toward January 15th. I rehearsed what I'd say. I prepared for every possible response. I tried to sleep and mostly failed. Taylor stayed with me the night before the meeting. You don't have to do this, she said. You know that, right? You could walk away, take what they gave you, and just move on. I agreed. But then what? I spend the rest of my life being grateful for scraps? Watching them do the same thing to Victor if he ever needs help? Pretending the photo wall doesn't exist? Fair point. She was quiet for a moment. Your grandfather would be proud of you. I hope so, I said, because if this goes wrong, he's the only family member who will still be speaking to me. January 15th, 2021, 2 p.m. Rebecca Wu's conference room had a long mahogany table, leather chairs, and windows that looked out onto a quiet street lined with bare trees. It was the kind of room designed to make people feel small. I arrived at 1:45 p.m. Taylor came with me for moral support but waited in the lobby. Wu thought it was better if I faced my parents alone. Show strength, not dependency. Wu and Gerald Preston were already there, reviewing documents. My parents arrived at exactly 2 p.m. No attorney. My father had apparently decided this wasn't serious enough to warrant legal representation. That was his first mistake. They sat across from me at the table. My mother's hands were shaking. My father's jaw was tight. Neither of them looked at me. Wu started the recording. New Jersey is a one-party consent state, but she informed them anyway. Professional courtesy. "Thank you for coming," Wu said. "This meeting concerns a breach of fiduciary duty related to Noelle's trust fund and Walter Doyle's conditional estate plan. Noelle will present the evidence. You'll have the opportunity to respond. Everything said here is being recorded per New Jersey statute. Do you consent?" "Yes," my father said tersely. "Yes," my mother whispered. Wu nodded to me. I opened the folder in front of me. My hands were steadier than I expected. "In June 2019, I said, reading from my notes because I didn't trust myself to speak without them, "you and Mom transferred $180,000 from my trust fund into Elena's business account. You were co-trustees. You had a legal obligation to act in my best interest. You violated it." I slid the bank transfer documents across the table. "I have the receipts, the authorization forms, the notarized familial benefit agreement, which, by the way, has my signature forged on it. I never agreed to this transfer. I never even knew about it until 6 weeks ago." The silence in the room was absolute. My mother picked up the documents with trembling hands. Her face went white. "Noelle, how did you—" "Grandpa Walter documented everything," I said. "He knew what you did, and he changed his will accordingly." My father's head snapped up. "He had no right. He had every right," Wu interrupted smoothly. "He was the grantor of the trust. He watched you violate your fiduciary duty to your daughter, and he built in a failsafe." She slid another packet across the table, the conditional will, the ledger, Preston's analysis. My father opened it. I watched the color drain from his face as he read. "This is everything," my mother whispered. She was flipping through the ledger now, seeing Walter's careful handwriting, years of documentation. "Dominic, this is everything." "We didn't steal," my father said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "We borrowed. Elena's business is an investment for the whole family. Once it's profitable—" "When will that be?" I asked. "Because right now she's burning $15,000 a month. The business has 12 total client reviews, half of which are from her friends. The money is gone, Dad. You gambled with my future and you lost." "We were going to pay you back." "That's not how trusts work," Wu said. Her voice was ice. "You can't borrow from a beneficiary without their explicit consent and a formal loan agreement with repayment terms. You misappropriated funds. Walter documented it, and he gave Noelle a choice." Preston cleared his throat. He'd been silent until now, letting Wu handle the legal maneuvering. But this part was his job. He read from the conditional will. "If upon my death, evidence exists that my granddaughter Noelle Doyle has been financially exploited by her trustees, the following distribution shall occur. Victor Doyle shall receive $100,000 outright. Noelle Doyle shall receive $1,600,000 in a protected trust. The remaining $200,000 shall be donated to the American Cancer Society in Noelle's name. Dominic Doyle's inheritance under this condition, $0. My father stood up so fast his chair fell backward. He did, Preston said calmly. "I have the executed will, witnessed, notarized, filed with the county clerk. The condition was triggered when Noelle accessed the safety deposit box and chose to proceed." My mother was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "Noelle, please," she said. "We made a mistake, but we're your parents. We love you." Something inside me cracked at those words. Not broke, cracked, like a window that's been hit but hasn't shattered yet. "You chose Elena's party over my surgery," I said quietly. "You took my money without asking. You paid for her college in full while I borrowed $87,000. You hung 13 photos of her and 3 of me. You made me believe I was loved the same when I wasn't." "We do love you the same. Love looks different than that, Mom." My father sat back down, slowly. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "What do you want?" he asked hoarsely. Wu laid out 3 options, her voice crisp and professional. Option 1. Accept Walter's conditional will as written. Dominic gets 0, Noelle gets $1.6 million, Victor gets $100,000. Option 2. Return the $180,000 to Noelle within 90 days. 3 payments of $60,000 due monthly. If you do this, Noelle will petition the court to invoke Walter's 2010 will instead, which gives Dominic his 50% inheritance, approximately $950,000. Noelle gets her trust money back, plus her 25% estate share. Victor gets his 25%. Everyone moves forward. Option 3, fight this. Litigate. Claim Walter was incompetent. But I'll file a fiduciary duty breach lawsuit simultaneously. That's public record. Elena will find out. The whole family will testify. And you will lose. My mother turned to my father. We can't afford $180,000. Elena's business has it, he said. No, it doesn't, I said. I've seen the financials. The money is gone. My father's face went gray. Then we'd have to liquidate your retirement account, Wu finished. Yes, or take a loan, or sell assets. Those are your options. My father put his head in his hands. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then he said something I didn't expect. Elena doesn't know, does she? I shook my head. No. Clara, he said quietly. We have to tell her. My mother made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. Tell her what? That we stole from her sister to fund her dream? That if the business fails, we've destroyed Noelle's future for nothing? We already destroyed it, my father said. The words hung in the air like smoke. He looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since this meeting started. Noelle, I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, I said, but you can stop making it worse. Choose option 2. Pay me back. Let Victor and me have what Grandpa wanted us to have, and tell Elena the truth. She'll hate us, my mother whispered. Maybe, I said, but she'll hate you more if she finds out from a lawsuit. The meeting ended at 4:15 p.m. My parents chose option 2. Wu drafted the settlement agreement on the spot. 3 payments of $60,000 due on the 15th of February, March, and April. If they missed a payment, the conditional will would be invoked immediately. My father signed with a hand that shook so badly he could barely write his name. Before they left, my mother tried one last time. We thought we were helping both of you, she said. Elena's success would reflect on the whole family. It would open doors for you too. I didn't need doors, Mom, I said. I needed you to show up to my surgery. She flinched like I'd slapped her. They left without another word. Taylor met me in the lobby. She didn't ask how it went. My face must have told her everything. We drove back to my apartment in silence. When we got there, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. You okay? Taylor asked. I don't know, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel something. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief, but I just feel empty. That's normal, she said. You didn't do this for revenge. You did it because it was right. Right doesn't always feel good. Will it ever feel good? Ask me in 90 days. The wait began. February 15th, first payment received, $60,000 wired to my account at 9:03 a.m. No note, no explanation, just numbers on a screen that said, you were right. March 15th, second payment received, $60,000. Still no communication from my parents beyond the transaction confirmation. April 15th, third payment received, $60,000. $180,000. My trust fund restored. I sat at my desk and looked at my bank balance. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life, more than I'd had any right to expect. But it wasn't about the money. It had never been about the money. It was about being counted, being seen, being valued enough that someone, my grandfather, had spent his final years making sure I'd be okay. 3 days after the final payment, my phone rang. Elena's name on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Why didn't you tell me? She said. She was crying, and everything changed again. Why didn't you tell me? Elena's voice was raw, breaking on every word. I pressed the phone against my ear, standing in my apartment kitchen where I'd been making coffee when she called. It was March 30th, 2021, 3 days after the final payment cleared. Tell you what? I asked, though I knew. About the money, about the surgery, about all of it. She was crying hard now. Dad told me everything last night. He broke down, told me my business was funded with your trust, that they left you alone in the ICU while we were at my party, that Grandpa Walter disowned him because of how they treated you. I closed my eyes. So they'd finally done it, finally told her. Noelle, I swear I didn't know. I thought, Mom and Dad said they took a loan against the house. I had no idea it was your money. I know you didn't, I said quietly. You know? Then why didn't you tell me yourself? Because it wasn't your fault, Elena. It was theirs, and I wanted you to hear it from them. She sobbed into the phone. My entire business. It's built on money they stole from you. I feel sick. I can't keep running it, knowing where it came from. Elena, I'm closing it. The word stopped me cold. What? The business. I'm shutting it down. I already told my business partner this morning. We're filing dissolution papers next week. Elena, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Her voice was firm despite the tears. It's not making money anyway, and I can't build my life on something that destroyed yours. Whatever assets are left after we pay debts, you're getting them. I don't want any of it. I don't want your business. I want my sister back, she said. But I don't know if that's possible after what they did, after what I didn't see. I leaned against the counter, throat tight. You didn't do this. But I benefited from it. Every single thing. College, the car, the wedding money, the business. I took it all without ever asking if you got the same. I was so focused on myself that I didn't see you disappearing. There was a long pause. Then, I'm sorry, I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry. Something in my chest unlocked. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of it, a crack in the door. Thank you, I whispered. April 2021 brought Elena's business liquidation, $35,000 after debts were paid. She wired all of it to me. I accepted $18,000, symbolic, half, and returned $17,000 with a note. Use this to start over. Not a business, just yourself. She didn't argue. On April 12th, I called a family meeting at my parents' house. Everyone, Dominic, Clara, Elena, Victor, and me. The first time we'd all been in the same room since the surgery. I stood at the head of the dining table, the same table where they'd debated Elena's college options while telling me to look into loans. I didn't do this to punish anyone, I said. My voice was steady. I did it because I needed you to see me. For 23 years, I've been the daughter who doesn't ask for anything, so you gave me nothing, and that was partly my fault. I made it too easy. My mother was crying silently. My father stared at his hands. But Grandpa Walter saw, I continued. He kept records because he loved me enough to make sure I'd be okay. That's what love looks like. How do we do better? My mother asked, her voice breaking. Start by asking, I said simply. Ask how I am, ask about my work, and when I say I'm fine, ask again, because I'm not always fine. I just got used to saying it. Victor spoke for the first time. For what it's worth, Noelle, you've always been the strongest person in this family. I'm sorry it took you almost dying for them to see it. I looked at him, my little brother who'd offered me $2,000 he didn't have. You saw it, thank you. Elena was last. I can't undo what I took from you, but I promise I'll never be that blind again. I'm stepping back from being the center of everything. Does that mean you forgive me? She asked. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I want to. Walter's 2010 will was executed per the settlement. Dominic, $950,000, well, $655,000 total, trust plus estate share. Victor, $575,000, estate plus Walter's gift. Elena, $0 from estate. The family didn't explode. It just rearranged itself, quietly, like pieces on a board finding new positions. 1 year later, April 2022. I stood in my kitchen in Providence, Rhode Island. The house I'd bought with cash, the life I'd built on my own terms. Sunlight streamed through the window. My design agency had 4 employees now. I was in therapy weekly. I was dating someone who'd met me after all of this, which felt important. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Hi, honey. Just wanted to say I'm thinking of you today. 2 years since the surgery. I should have been there. I'm sorry I wasn't. Love, Mom. I read it twice, then typed. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. I sent it. Then I opened the drawer where I kept Walter's ledger. I flipped to the last page, to his handwritten note. A parent's job is to lift all their children, not to use one as a ladder for another. I closed it. I didn't need to read it anymore. I knew what it said. My name is Noelle Doyle. I'm 28 years old. And 5 years ago, I almost died on an operating table while my family celebrated somewhere else. But I didn't die. And when I woke up, I found something more valuable than an inheritance. Proof that I mattered to someone. My grandfather saw me when no one else did. He counted what they wouldn't count. He measured what they called immeasurable. People ask if I regret tearing my family apart. But I didn't tear it apart. It was already broken. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. They say money doesn't buy happiness. But it bought me something better. Distance. Time. The space to heal without having to explain why I'm hurt. Maybe someday I'll let them close again. But it'll be on my terms. Because that's what Walter's ledger really taught me. The quiet always lose if they don't keep score. But I kept score. And I won. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you are in the world right now. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you found something valuable here, please subscribe. There are more stories like this. Stories about the quiet ones who finally learned to speak. Thank you for being here.